Welcome to the Sacred and the Profane podcast. I'm your host, Shannon McNally. We will be speaking with elders, musical luminaries, medicine people, and session players about everyday magic and the past, present, and future of heartfelt and soulful real music.
Hi, everybody. This is Shannon McNally, and I am speaking with Carlene Carter today, and we're talking about her friend and mentor, Waylon Jennings.
Waylon Jennings, that's right.
And I'm so glad you're here with me. Thank you very much.
I'm so glad to be here too. I could talk a mile a minute about old Waylon.
All right. Well, would you tell us how you know him? I mean, for those people.
Well, it goes back really far into the 60s when I think it was probably around 64, 65, maybe earlier than that. My memory is that we went to John shared an apartment. Big John Cash shared an apartment with Waylon. Now, can you imagine these two are hanging around together in the early 60s? It was interesting, I believe. Well, I remember my mom going over there and taking me and my little sister because there was no one to watch us, and we had to go over there because they had trouble getting into their apartment, and they were constantly breaking the door down to the point that I think the landlord finally just removed the door, and they had no door. So we went over there. I know there was something else going on that we weren't privy to, but Mom immediately goes in the kitchen and starts washing dishes. She just couldn't stand, she starts pumping everything up. But Waylon and John were both really nervous because June had come. And I don't know what they'd been up to. But so when I first met him, he was slick back Waylon, very handsome. And John was slick back, nervous Johnny Cash. And so they were the best of pals then. And so for a lot of years, I never really saw him that much, until the 70s. But when I always loved the fact that my Aunt Nita did some records with him and had like a top 10 duet with him called I Got You. Mm-hmm. And the combination of their Anita Carter and Waylon Jennings' voices were so, it was like, because he could be so like deep and this beautiful, smooth voice. It was like he talked like that too. So it was like this neat thing. And Anita had this angelic thing. So they just blended into this perfect other sound, the third voice kind of thing. And so I knew a lot about that. And I always thought that they looked good together. I didn't, I thought, he may be my Uncle Waylon someday, but it wasn't like that. They were pals. So that was my first getting to be around Waylon. I won't say that I got to know him until I was about 19 or 20 years old, when I really got to be a so-called grown-up. Right.
Well, I mean, they were busy out there being
oh yeah,
being outlaws, being on the road and just doing and doing what they were doing,
Yeah, they were having a big time, and I think they both really loved touring, so they had that in common, and they both loved kind of like playing pranks. And I mean, Waylon was a gentle guy for all of his being an outlaw and everything. He was a very gentle man and a gentleman. Mm-hmm. I always found him to be that. And I can remember when I first started writing songs, is getting to play a song for him and Jesse. We're over at my mom and John's house, and getting to play them one of my songs. And I just was like, ooh, he sang with my Aunt Nita. Oh, they're outlaws. Okay. And then I got to be friends with them, apart from being around my folks. Also, my dad, Carl Smith, was great buddies with Waylon. So after them not seeing each other for many years, I took Waylon and Jesse out to see Carl and Goldie out at the farm, out at the ranch, and they reconnected again. And that was like in the sort of mid to late-ish 70s.
So navigating through the middle of that, like, these are just my people.
They're my people and my friends. And then I remember when the Outlaw record came out, when they had the first big record came out, I blasted that thing in my Roadrunner. I had a Roadrunner, and I just blasted that cassette, and I just loved Jesse, and I loved Waylon, I loved Tom Paul, and it was just a really cool time for music. And it also made me quite a lot more aware of country music in a way, because it had the edge to it that I really liked as being a fan of rock and roll. They had this edge and this danger kind of thing going on, even though it was brave. It was kind of a brave departure from Nashville, even though they were really Nashville songwriters and, you know, and artists, and they just things weren't going quite the way they wanted to, and so they just went off and made their own genre.
Right, and then sort of managed to elevate the whole thing, and then build off what was there.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite memory of him, or I know you sang a little bit with him.
I tell you what, one of my favorite memories and stories is it involves Big John, and I had written a song for John for his birthday because I didn't have enough money to give him a gift. Mm-hmm. So I'd always given him a box of Goo Goo Clusters. So we were having Christmas, and I wrote this song for him, and he goes, "Oh, this is great." And it was called "It Takes One to Know Me." And it was written from my heart to him. Mm-hmm. And at some point later on, John had said that night, he said, "I'm going to make that my next single." Well, a lot of time went by, and I didn't know he recorded it. He never recorded it or anything. And then one night, Waylon and Jesse were over, or I was over that way, and I played him the song, and I told him about how I'd written it. And Waylon said, "I want to cut that." Now, this is a time when I was really kind of poor, and I had a baby on the hip and another one running around, and mm-hmm. I could have really used a cut from Waylon Jennings right after Ramblin' Man came out. It was right in that era. And so I said, well, I gave it to John, and he says he's going to record it, but he hasn't yet. And he said, well, so I have to ask him if it's okay. When I called John and said, Waylon wants to record this song, is it okay? And he goes, no, that's my...
No, absolutely not.
And he got all mad, and He thought Waylon was trying to scoop his song, and so I said, no, you can't do it. It's John's song. He's going to hold on that for him. And I did come to find out after they'd passed away that he had recorded it. But it was really cute though, because Waylon was like, "You have to ask your dad if I can record this song."
These things are complicated.
Yeah.
That's great.
But we had lots of long talks, and because he could talk a mile a minute back in the day, and he'd listen to my songs and give me a pointer. He said, "I don't like that one as much as that one," and then he'd sing me a song. It was really fun,
So one of the reason that I did this record was like something you and I have talked about earlier today. I had never heard a woman sing any of these songs, and I never thought about it. Waylon and Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson and Chris Christopherson, all those guys, I've heard a lot of women sing a lot of their songs, but when I thought about it for a minute, I thought, I don't know if I've ever heard a woman sing any of Waylon's sort of those primary archetypal songs that he did.
Yeah.
I've always connected to them. I went through a big phase where I listened to nothing but him for about a year. And when I lived in New Orleans for a long time. But I'd never heard, so when I thought about doing it, when I'd been in Nashville for a while, and I've seen plenty of men sing the songs, and it seemed a little one-dimensional. And I thought, how you can do something, you just have this reaction like, I could do that.
Yeah.
Why don't I?
That's the reaction I got was like, wow, somebody did it. You did it. Because I don't know any other women that would have thought to do an entire record of Waylon songs. No, it's awesome. And it's just historically, usually guys do guys tribute records, or, they'll do all their songs, and girls will do Nina Simone, or they'll do Patsy Cline record or something like that, but no one wants to do an all Waylon. I mean, I think there's been, I recorded I've Always Been Crazy on a Waylon tribute record.
Nice.
Yeah. That bridge is hard.
Oh, yeah.
But to rewrite the melody.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's one of the things I like about what's so nice as a singer, singing his songs, is it takes me out of all of my normal sort of pretty patterns. And
Yes.
it's very, it's like you have to sing like you're speaking it, but you're still speaking it. And he dips down real low. I found it stretched my my range. You know, I had
to jump up too high or down real low.
Yeah, I had to investigate my low range, but without doing it like I was.
I liked what you did with it. I thought it was
cool.
Good.
I'm so glad.
Well, because I was waiting to see what you did there. I was like, wonder if she's going to do that.
Yeah,
because it was like, yeah.
So I thought, you know, if this goes horribly wrong, I don't ever have to play it.
At least you had a good time.
This is
that's the way I look at all things.
Ain't nobody gonna know.
Hey, you know what? I always look at it as if this goes absolutely horribly wrong, either it's going to be a big splash of scandal, or it's going to be really no one's going to know.
Well, what do you think Waylon would think of it, just sort of conceptually? I think he
would be really blown away. I think he would be really surprised and blown away. So I was, and I'm sure he would be. Yeah, no question. He would really like it. Waylon had such a charismatic way, and he had a way with women, not in a like necessarily Don Juan kind of way, but he was approachable, and he also was not scared to talk to you, and talk to you like a real person instead of just like as a chick, you know. And that's what I always really liked about him. And but the music part of everything was very important to him, because I've got to say that every time I was ever around him, it centered around playing music. He wanted to sit down and get the guitar out. He wanted to play. He wanted to hear something. That was pretty neat about it.
That's a pretty deep pool of inspiration right there.
Yeah, and I couldn't believe I was in it. You know, I couldn't believe that I got to go be around it, because they were older, they were way more successful, all those kind of things, and they just took me in like I belonged there, and it was great.
Well, I'm sure you did belong there. You know, I mean, you're a fantastic singer and I
like to say I infiltrate and conquer.
Infiltrate and conquer. Ooh, I like that.
Infiltrate and conquer. Yeah,
That's good. I'm going to use that. I like that. I like that a lot. Can you think of anything specific that, like, you know, when you can you think of anything specific that, some piece of advice or just something that Waylon would say that can come to your mind, like something?
Well, with him, some of the advice that he gave me was, hold on to your publishing. Write your songs and be yourself. And that was pretty much what he did. Mm-hmm. He was himself. He didn't compromise himself. And Jessie was just like, I just thought she was just the epitome of everything that I wanted to look like. I wanted to play the piano like that. I wanted to figure out how she sang like that. I was just like totally intrigued with Jessie and how she did her hair. And
her hair is the best. Her hair is, oh man.
Yeah. And but he was always about you don't have anything if you don't have a good song. He always said you need to kind of know where it's coming from. You have to feel, if it's not your song, you need to feel like you wish you'd written it. That's how I've ruled my life pretty much. And
that's a really nice point. If you didn't write it, you should. If you're singing a song that you didn't write, you should be singing it because you wish you wrote it.
There's 700 I wish I'd written, but
I know.
You know what I mean? There's like so many of them.
You know, like This Time, that song.
Yeah.
I thought, I wish I wrote that song. That song should be cut by 100 different people in 100 different ways.
Well, you know, this is part, you know, a shooter is carrying on the legacy by still being out there and playing and adding music to it and all that. But it's important for people that aren't particularly related to carry it on, because there is a whole generation, my grandkids, for instance, that probably don't have a clue who Waylon Jennings is, who will now if they hear your record. You know what I mean? So it's important to keep it alive, and that's what I was charged with as a kid, is to keep Carter family music alive, and add to it.
I wonder what Waylon would be doing today if he was, still with us.
If he was here with us and he wasn't busy, I would have told him to come over here and do a surprise visit.
That
Here.
would be great.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Man, well.
He would be making music more than likely. He's something. I saw a picture the other day of John was Shooter's godfather, and they rented out the Hendersonville skating rink where me and my little sister skated when we were little girls.
Right.
And gave him a skate party, and I saw a picture of Big John skating with Shooter when he was like probably about 8 or 10, something like that. It was really cute, and I wasn't at that. I think I had pretty much gone to England by that point, and but one thing I will say about Waylon is every time I saw him, no matter where we were, we were always really happy to see each other, and I think that he felt that way about people he liked. You know, he wouldn't run away and hide in the dressing room. He like if you wanted to say hi, he'd always give you a big hug and be happy to see you. I do know a funny story if you want to hear a funny story.
I sure do.
He used to tell me this story every single time we get together. I think he'd forget that he told me, but he told it too in front of Daddy and Goldie. It was a story about him and Daddy being young guys hanging out down at Tootsie's, and they played the Opry or something, and he said every night they'd be out doing their thing, whatever they were up to, and there'd be a couple of girls, and Daddy would always take the ugly one, and the uglier one. This is what Waylon's words. Right. He said, I couldn't understand. She'd always give me the better looking one, and he'd go off with this other one. So this went on for weeks on end, and finally Waylon goes, wait a minute, I want to go with that one that you and Daddy was not going off with them. He was playing a long con on Waylon to get him to go off with the not so pretty girl.
A long con. Now there you go.
Con.
Now there's a lost art.
I think there's something about when you've known somebody for so many years, and when you do get back together and see each other, you almost always just start laughing. You don't even have to say anything. You just look at each other and go, look at us.
We're still here.
Yeah. He was like my uncle. I would say, Uncle Waylon, but yeah, he was kind of like an uncle to me, but a cool uncle, not one that you had to say yes, sir, no, sir, to.
That would be funny if he turned out to be like a real disciplinarian.
I know. No,
too much irony.
Okay, honey. Well, I'm glad to talk to you. All right, stay in touch.
I will. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh.
Bye.
Bye.